Hey, thanks for tuning in to How to Be an Excel Expert. On today's episode, I think we've got a really good one for you. I received a question from a friend who wanted to know if it was possible to use Excel to calculate federal tax withholdings in her paycheck. And as many of us have seen receiving our paychecks, it does seem random. There's not a linear formula that's used. And she wants to know if there's a way to do it. And I saw this as a pretty good challenge. So I went ahead and designed a model to see if we could do it. So as we go through this, please understand I'm not a tax professional. I'm not a HR professional. My goal here is to show some Excel functions that will hopefully allow you to become a better Excel operator. Okay, so this is the publication that the IRS uses to determine federal withholdings. This was a boring read, but I went ahead and read through it and developed an algorithm for calculating federal tax withholding. So I'm going to go through that pretty quick. That's not the reason why I'm doing this video. And then I'm going to develop a model and we'll execute it. So the first thing that we're going to need is we're going to need the user inputs, the assumptions. And then we're going to look at the IRS rules and the methodology that the IRS uses to calculate tax withholdings. They're going to outline the model, and then I'm going to tell you what functions are going to be used in the model, and then we're going to execute that. So just starting off with some basic assumptions. The gross income per period for this hypothetical paycheck is going to be $1,000 per period, and that this employee gets paid weekly, and that their filing status is married, and that the retirement contribution rate is 6%. And we need to know the retirement contribution deduction status. You can have a 401k that is traditional and it's fully deductible. You could have a Roth 401k, but that's not deductible. And there's a third flavor, and that's a non-deductible. I said IRA, but 401k. It also could be a 403b. I think there's a 455 too out there too. There's a lot of different tax code retirement systems, but we're going to assume this one's a 401k. The rest are all treated the same, but we need to know what that deduction status is. And so in this assumption, it will be a deductible traditional 401k. We're also going to need to know the medical, dental, vision, health savings account, flexible savings account deductions. And in this case, they're all going to add up to $120 per pay period. And other insurances like long-term disability, short-term disability, voluntary life insurance, and any other kind of deductions that your employer might have. And in this hypothetical, we're going to assume that's $45. All right, so the basic IRS rules and methodology for calculating taxable income is going to be to take your gross income, subtract the retirement contribution, and then subtract your deductible medical type insurances. Now, there is another method, and that other method requires filling out a W-4 and estimating your taxes, what other deductions you might have. Maybe you have another job and you want all your taxes to come out, whatever. The method I'm using here accounts for about 95% of the population. I am never going to write a model in Excel that's going to cover 100% of all the situations out there. In this instance, I'm going to use the model that encapsulates 95% of all employees in this country. Okay, so if yours doesn't match exactly, you might be one of that 5%. But this is the basic way to do it. So you take your gross income, in this case $1,000, subtract out the retirement contribution, which was 6% of 1,000 is 60, and then subtract out your deductible medical type insurances, 120. So this individual has a taxable income of $820 per week. You also need to calculate your state and Social Security incomes. Social Security incomes takes your taxable income and adds back in the retirement contribution. So it's $880. is the Social Security taxable. And then in my state, Pennsylvania, that is also your state taxable income. Okay. You then take your taxable income and you have to annualize that taxable income. So in this case, you multiply taxable income by 52. If you get paid monthly, it'd be 12. And that gives you your annualized taxable income, but then you subtract the standard deduction for married people, because in this case he's married. So when you do that math, his annualized taxable income comes out to $17,540. Then you take that $17,540 and you go to the withholding table and you take the 17,540, you find where 17,540 falls for married individuals, which is that middle column, up to 19,900. His 17,540 falls there. And then you multiply that times 10%, because that's the rate in that red box all the way to the left. And then you add in 0, I'll explain that when we get to the tables in Excel, and gives him an annualized tax bill of $1,754. Okay, he only makes $1,000 a week. Obviously, he's not going to pay $1,754 in taxes per week. You then have to divide that by the number of pay periods in the year. So that comes out to $33.73 withheld each paycheck for this individual. So that's the math, that's the methodology, the rules, the algorithm for calculating it. Now we just need to do all of that in Excel and come up with $33.73. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to do that. So the outline for our model is we're going to have 5 tabs. All right, we're going to have a tab with just the tax tables. And I'm doing this for multiple years, because if you do this and you want to have it, you're going to want to have it for multiple years. So it's got to be set up to be able to handle multiple years. And then we're going to have a little reference table with a couple of drop-down lists that we're going to create so that the user doesn't make mistakes typing things in. And then we'll have the user inputs where we put in those things like $1,000 and 52 paychecks a year. And then we'll have a calculations tab, and then we'll have our final paycheck tab. So the user goes into the input tab, puts in their inputs, they go to the paycheck tab, and they see the results. They don't have to go into the others. At the end, what I would do if I were making this for real, I would then hide the tax table tab, the reference tab, and the calculations tab, and the user would just have the 2 tabs that they can use. All right, the functions that we're going to use in this video are simple, round, it's an easy one. VLOOKUP, very common, a lot of people use it. Index and match, not as many people use them, but they definitely have their place in this model. And my favorite function of all time, the offset function. And boy, is that one handy when calculating withholding tables and creating dynamic arrays and matrices that can change. If you change your tax year, you're going to have a different withholding table. The offset function is perfect for that. And then some of the tools that I want to use in Excel, I want to use the name manager, because I like to name variables. Nothing worse than looking at a formula and see that B2 times C4 times reference F14. I hate that. I want to see the names. I want to see it say taxable income times federal tax rate, that kind of thing. So I'm going to use the name manager a lot. You don't have to, but I like it, and I think you should, because when you're debugging a spreadsheet down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, maybe you haven't used it in several months, and you're trying to fix something, boy, it really helps to have those variables named. All right, we're going to use a data validation list. So basically create a couple of drop downs for the user so that when they're typing in bi-monthly, they don't make a spelling mistake and screw everything up. So we'll just force them to be able to have to choose one of those items in the list. Then at the end, I want to do the what-if analysis for goal seek and also a data table. I like doing these. I like showing people how to use these, because most people don't know that they exist and they don't know how to use them if they do. And they're very, very valuable, I think, especially goal seek. I love goal seek. All right. So that's it. I think we are ready to go. So let's do it. All right. So I told you that there were 5 tabs. I already did some homework and I already created it. All right. You don't need to see me typing information in. So I have for the tax years of 2018 through 2027, the married, single, and head of household annual federal tax brackets. Okay. Currently, when I'm filming this in 2021, in 2022, these are proposed. All right. They'll probably be that. This is probably what they'll be. All right. If they're different when you're doing this, all you got to do is come in here and type what the actual ones are. 2023 and beyond, then that's just a simple 3% increase. It's a projection. It's not even a proposal. It'll likely be different. All right. So married, single, head of household. Down here we have married, head of household, and single standard deductions. Again, same thing. These are actuals. This is proposed, and these are projected. All right. Also input here maximum Social Security. Many of you may not even know that when you hit in 2021 a salary, taxable salary of $142,800, then you stop paying Social Security and you enter what's called a donut hole. And then I think it's at $250,000 you start paying Social Security taxes again. And they're trying to close that donut hole, and so every year that value goes up. Eventually it will hit 250 and there will not be a donut hole anymore, and everybody will just pay Social Security tax on everything that they earn. And so here we have our Social Security tax rates, 6.2. We have our Medicare tax rates, Pennsylvania state tax, 3.07% flat tax. Now, some of you may live in a state in which you have no tax. That's simple. You just change these numbers to 0. Some of you may live in a state that has a progressive tax rate, kind of like our federal taxes. That's a little more complicated, but I'm going to show you how to do it with the federal. You just can rewrite your model, if you're going to do this, to incorporate a progressive tax system the same way we're going to do it with the federal. Okay. In Pennsylvania, though, we do also pay a local tax rate based on where you live, and in my locality it's 1.55%. And then also there's an PA unemployment insurance rate of 0.06 of 1%, so it's a very small number. And then we also have a local services tax based on the city or town that you work in, and that's a flat rate of $52.08 for my locality in which I live, but that's divided by the number of paychecks that you have, so it's an annual $52, which is not very expensive, but that's to get people who work in one city but live in another, so that that city where everybody works gets their due as well. So in the end, the headline rate for Pennsylvania of 3.07 looks cheap. It looks like one of the lower states, but then when you take into account these other taxes, they do add up. And so for me, it's another 1.61% plus that, so 4.68% total tax plus this, plus property taxes, plus that. They find a way to tax it. Anyway, so we have our tax table tab. All right. I created a simple reference tab. I do this every time I make a model so that I can create a couple of reference lists. Okay. So for this one, married, single, and head of household, I'm going to name this, and I'm going to name it as filing status list. Okay. And then hit enter. And then I'm going to name this one as the paycheck frequency list. And then I'm going to create a paycheck frequency table. And then I'm going to just create a simple one, yes or no. All right. So now I have 3 lists. All right, you can see them here. 4 lists, because 3 lists in one table. All right, another way to see them is to go to formulas and name manager, and you can see the lists and tables that you've created right here. And I click on that, and then it'll highlight that. If you've never used this kind of thing before, it's kind of neat. Now I'll show you why I do it. All right, so now we go into the user inputs. Okay, tax year, very simple. I'm going to type in 2021. All All right, paycheck frequency. This is where I want the user to choose from the list. And what list would that be? Paycheck frequency list. All right. So what I'll do there is I'll go to data, and I'll go to data validation, choose list, and then down here I will type in paycheck frequency list. You don't have to worry about uppercase and all that jazz. It'll fix it for you. And now there's a drop down, and when there's a drop down, the user can then choose. So in this case, they're getting paid weekly. All right. So filing status. That was the other list that we had, and that was called filing status list. So we'll do the same thing. Go to data validation, choose list, and equals filing status list. All right. And so this person is married. All right. What did we say their base pay was? $1,000. All right. Their retirement contribution rate we said was 6%. Okay. And then that's just a simple calculation there. Hold on for now. I'm going to type that formula in so you can see it. I thought I did that. But anyway, the retirement deductible. This is where I want the yes or no. All right. So we're going to create another data validation list equals yes, no. And so yes. Again, they probably could spell yes, they probably could spell no without making a mistake. They could also leave it blank, or they could put a different word in there. I like using the validation lists to prevent them from putting in something incorrect. Okay. All right, so we said that their medical, dental, and vision accounted for, what did we say here? I think it was 120. Yes, 120. All right, I don't know what the breakdown is. I'll just put 80 here, 10 here, 10 here. So it's 100 and put 20 there. All right. So this is a simple addition. You're adding up all the deductible insurances. This is a simple math, but I'm going to hold off on that for a second because I want to name some things. All right. So we're going to name this as tax year. All right. We're going to name this as paycheck frequency. Okay. We're going to name this as filing status. We're going to name this gross pay. Okay. We're going to name this retirement contribution rate. And this one we'll just name retirement deduction status. And we'll name this one total deductible insurance. We'll name this one total non-deductible insurance. All right. Now for the retirement contribution dollars, it's going to be, and this is where naming helps, gross, and you can hit tab. You don't have to type the whole word in. Once it shows the one you want, you can hit tab, times retirement. I spelled retirement contribution rate wrong. I have to fix that. All right. All right, so you get the $60. So let's go and fix that. I hate spelling mistakes. Retirement contribution rate. All right. All right, so these are all the named cells that we have so far. All right. Bam. And then what did we say? We had $45, for the other non-insurances. So we'll do 15, 15, 15, and then we'll do sum. Bam. So now we have all our inputs in there. And actually, to just stay consistent, I'm going to take the yellow out. Because what I do is I always put yellow where the user has something that they need to input. And if it's not yellow, the user doesn't touch that field. Okay? All right, so we all now have all of our user inputs. All right, so gross income. I'm just going to type gross pay there. Federal taxable income is going to be gross pay minus retirement dollars. Oops, I didn't name that one. So go back here. We'll name it retirement dollars. So equals gross pay minus retirement dollars minus deductible, total deductible insurance right there. All right, and we get the 820. All right, the Social Security income is going to, and we're going to name that federal taxable income. And so this is going to be Fed taxable income plus retirement dollars, 880. And then the local taxable income for me equals gross income. All right, in my local, we don't get any kind of deductions, so my local is that. So we'll call that local taxable income. And then we'll call this Social Security income, taxable income. All right. So now we have to determine what the standard deduction is based on my federal taxable income rate. Okay, so we'll calculate that first. And now we're going to start using the offset function. So the tax year is 2021. We need to go into the tax tables and find the standard deduction based on married, head of household, and single. So we're going to start here. And we're going to move over to 2021. So we're going to have to come over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. And then we're going to come down 0 because we're going to want to stay on the married. So actually I'll start it here, go over 7, come down 1 for the married, and I'll explain that in a minute. And I want to return this cell, okay? I could just type H29, but that could change. It easily could change every time you do this model. So you want to set this up so that it won't change, all right? So how do we write that, all right? I'm going to write it as an offset, okay? All right, so the offset function looks like this, the reference. Where are we starting? All right, we're going to start, as I said, right here, and I always lock the cell. I don't know if I have to, I just always do. I don't want that to ever change, all right? So A28 is my start. Now, how many rows do I want to come down? Well, I want to come down 1. I'm going to write the formula for that here in a minute. I want to come over 7, and I want to return a cell that's 1, comma 1, all right? And that's returning a cell. It's not returning an array. It's not returning a matrix. It's returning a cell. So it's just 1, comma 1. 1 row, 1 column. All right, the 1 and the 7 are going to be formulas, but I'll change those in a minute. And that should return $25,100. All right, it does. So now I have to write a formula that's going to return the 1, all right, to get me down to the married. All right, so if I were to do index, or I'm sorry, the filing status, it's going to give me married. All right, so now I want to do index these three right here, comma, filing status. Sorry, not index, it's a match. All right. Do that again. Match, filing status, and I want to look in these three cells. Okay, lock them in. And comma 0 means an exact match. All right, so that's how I get my 1. That's my formula for finding the 1. So I'm going to copy that formula, and right here where it says this 1, I'm going to put it in, paste it in, Control V. That pastes it in. I still have my 25,100. Now I need to write a formula that will return that 7. And again, what am I trying to find? I'm trying to find what column I have to come over to find 2021. All right, so in the calculations, tax year is 2021. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write another match function. All right, and I'm going to go back into the tables here, and I'm going to match this number or this row, lock it in with tax year. I want an exact match of 0. Do something wrong? Let's try that again. Match. The lookup values first. I'm sorry, tax year. Then the array, which is the first row. Lock it in, and I want an exact match. Return my 7. Then I copy that formula. Control C copies, and where it says 7, paste it in. Boom. Now I have my $25,100 is my standard deduction. Now when I read this, yeah, I do have a tax table 828. That's just a reference. That's a starting point. It's not a problem to have just a cell reference, but I'm matching the filing status with those 3 cells on the in the tax table. And then I'm also matching the tax year with that first row to find the year, and I'm returning a cell of 1 by 1. And that's how I get my standard deduction of 25,100. If I were to change that to say 2018 and go back to my calculations, it's now going to be 24,000. And let's look up what the tax rate is. It's 24,000 for the married in 2018. All right, so let's try something else. Let's make this person single. All right, and then go back to calculations, 12,000, and let's make it 2019. All right, and 12,200. So let's look up single in 2019. So 2019 single, 12,200 right there, because that's 2019. Perfect. I know it works now. So I go back to 2021 and married. Okay. All right. Now, annualized income is going to be, if you remember from the algorithm, it's going to be federal taxable income times, I forgot to name a cell, paycheck frequency. What do I have for that name? Paycheck frequency, weekly. But I don't want that named like that, so I'm going to delete that one, okay? Because the paycheck frequency is going to be we want weekly reference table. I want the 52. So we're going to have to go into the paycheck frequency table. Okay. So I want to return a 52 here. Equals VLOOKUP. We're going to look this cell up in the paycheck frequency table, comma 2, comma false, exact match. And that's how we get our 52. All right. I want to define that. I want to create it. Create a variable name. All right, I'm going to show you something. You don't have to do it this way, but I like kind of do. I could just simply write my variable name here. I could name it paycheck frequency. All right, I could do it very simply, not a problem. But I want to show you another way to do it that's kind of cool. All right, again, copy your formula, including the equal sign. All right. Now you have it copied. Go into Name Manager. Paycheck frequency we do not have as it. Okay, good. I can click New and create a new variable. And we'll call it Paycheck frequency. All right. Equals, and then I paste in the formula that we have there. The only thing that I have to change though is I can't, oops, the double equal sign there. I can't have cell B2 because it has to state what the, let's do this again. Copy this. I'm going to paste it into calculations for a second. I can't have the cell B2. It has to have the tab name in it as well. There we go. So now I have to lock that in. Now I'm copy the formula minus the equal sign. Control C to copy. Go to Name Manager. Click New. Paycheck frequency equals. Paste it in. And now I have a formula. I created my own variable with its own formula in it. I don't need this anymore. All right. So now I can take gross pay times paycheck frequency and then subtract standard deduction. Oh, I didn't name it. Okay, I'm going to name that standard deduction. Sorry, it's not gross pay. It's federal taxable pay. What am I thinking? Income. Fed taxable income times paycheck frequency minus standard deduction. There we go. 17,540, which is the same number as what we had before. All right, good. Whew. All right, so now you can see though, I know my naming sequence here, it caused a couple of errors on my part, but you can see how this will make things a whole lot easier to debug later in the future. And isn't it cool that you created a paycheck frequency variable that has no cell anywhere in the workbook? You created it virtually in the Name Manager by typing in your formula here. Again, cool, not necessary to do, but I really like that. All right, so now we need to calculate the top tax bracket. So let's look at the tax table again for 2021. All right, in the married, this is the tax table. All right, so we need to figure out what tax bracket they fall in. All right, so his taxable income is 17,540. It's going to be in this top one right here. All right, so I need to write a formula that's going to return that 10%. All right, so I'm going to first match. Oh, I need to name this annualized income. Okay. First, I need to create my withholding table. I forgot about that. All right, so let's create our withholding table. And the withholding table is just going to be this. I need to return that. I needed to return that by coming over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns and coming down 1, 2. We're coming down 1 from the married, so we'll come down 1. And then I want to return 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, comma 2. I want to return a matrix of 7, comma 2. So come over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Come down 1, return 7, 2. All right. So here, I'm going to write my offset function. Offset. All right. Go back to the tax table. I am going to start there at 2018. Lock that in. I'll tell you why in a minute. Remember, I want to come down 2. I want to come over 7, or 6. And I return 7, comma 2. And there's my withholding table. All right, so now we need to write the formula in here to get to that first 2. And that first 2 represents how many rows down we're going to come until we find the word married. Okay, so the way we do that is we match the filing status, right, with this entire column, and we want an exact match, and that should return a 2, and it does. The next one that we want to write a formula for is the 6. Well, we already wrote that one. That's an easy one, right? Tax year. Match. Tax year. Going across with an exact match. But this one returns a 7. We want a 6. So we'll write a -1 in there. All right. The next one we want is the 7. And that's because we're returning 7, comma 2. And as long as there's 7 tax brackets, the number 7 is never going to change. And the 2 is never going to change because you want percentage and dollars. So the 7, comma 2 doesn't change. So now we can put the formulas in. The 6. Paste that over the 6. And we'll copy this formula. Whoops. And paste it over the 2. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to copy this entire formula. All right. And I'm going to go into Name Manager. I'm going to create a new one, Withholding Table. Take the underline part out, and I'm going to paste it in. All right. And so now when I hit the up arrow for withholding table, it's going to take me here. Okay. So now it's a named variable. I can delete this. All right. And then I can just type withholding table. Brings it in. So let's do what we did before. Let's change some things. Let's say it's 2022. All right, and let's say it's head of household. Let's choose it from the list. Okay, now when I go back to the calculations, my withholding table 10% 14.8. Okay, or let's go to the Name Manager. Go to Withholding Table and hit this little up arrow, and it brings me into here, 2022 head of household. Bam. It's kind of cool. I like that. Let's go back in here and let's make it 2026 and single. Okay. Go to Name Manager, Withholding Table, hit the up arrow, 2026 single. Isn't that cool? I really think that's cool. All right, so now we have our withholding table, and it's a using offset. It is now a dynamic because it can change based on user input. It's a dynamic matrix. All right, and by typing in withholding table here, it puts it there so that you can easily see it while you're doing the calculations. All right, so we want this top tax bracket now. All right, so that's simply an index of these cells, and we're only going to come down 1, right? we want the 10%, so we need to write the formula to get the 1, and that's a match. And here's where it can kind of get cool. Match the annualized income in these cells but we don't want an exact match. I think it's a -1 we want here. Nope. Oh, yeah, okay. So it's coming down the 2. In this case, oh, I see what's going on here. We changed this. So 2021 and married. It's the first tax bracket. So it's coming down 1. All right. It's the first one down. So we're returning that 1. So we'll copy this. Okay. And where the 1 is, paste that in. 10%. And we'll call this top tax bracket. All right. So dollars at this rate is just going to be annualized income times top tax bracket. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Nope. In this case, it's going to be the annualized income minus the lowest bracket. And let me apologize. I should have finished this withholding table. Okay, I should have finished. So this 10% ends at 19,900. All right, that's what's happening here. That's how it should look. The withholding table, bottom, top. All right. And the maximum that you would pay is $1,990 at the 10% rate, okay? So at the 22% rate, you're going to pay the $1,990 plus you're going to pay this number right here. So the $8,150 F3 minus the $1,990, $1,900, and that's $73.38. Okay, and then you're going to add the $1,990 on there. All right, there we go. So if you're in the 24 tax bracket, you're going to subtract your annualized income minus the bottom, multiply that difference times 24 and 24%, and then you're going to add 20,174. All right, so in this case, it's going to be the same formula. All right. Okay, so we want to take the annualized income and subtract 0. All right, but let's say that's numbers higher, just so that we have it. So let's say this person makes $4,000 a week. All right, that's a really good paycheck. All right, that's going to put them in the 22% tax bracket. Okay, so in the 22% tax bracket, we're going to have to subtract the 164.18 minus the 81.050. All right, and then we're going to multiply this number times 22%. Okay, and then we're going to add the 73.38 for total tax dollars at that rate of 25,626.60. All right, so I'm going to copy that formula. All right, I always go backwards, right to left. So cell G4. So how do we get to the G4? All right, so the way that we get to the G4 is we want to match the tax bracket, tax bracket. All right, so we want, it's going to get complicated, but just follow along with me here. All right, match top tax bracket Let's do a VLOOKUP. That'll be easier. VLOOKUP, top tax bracket, comma, withholding table, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh yeah, withholding table doesn't have all 4. Darn it. There. Lock it in. 7338. So that's how I get this G4. Alright, so I can get rid of that. And F11. That's F11 right there. So let's copy that in. F11 is D4. How do we get to D4? Well, that's top tax bracket. And then E11, how do we get to E11? Well, that's this formula right here. Annualized income minus E4. I'm going to have to bracket those. And how do I get to E4? Okay, that's going to be another VLOOKUP table. Top tax bracket. Damn. Now I have my formula. Total tax dollars at this rate, 25,626. The taxes at the lower rate. I forgot how I even designed this. I'm going to cut that out. Taxes at the lower rate. That's this portion right here, the 7338. This is actually the taxes at this rate. Okay. This number right here is how many dollars are taxed at the 22% rate. So it's this number right here. Yeah. And instead of all this, it's just this cell right there. And then total taxes equals that. What's that? There we go. All right, so we have top tax bracket. We have the dollars that are taxed at that 22%, which is just your annualized income minus that 8105. So we're going to have tax $83,000 at the 22% rate, which equals $18,000. Then we're going to add in the taxes at the lower rate of 7338, and the total taxes annualized is 25,626. Total taxes per pay period is going to be equal to this divided by paycheck frequency. Now, I'm also going to have to round that. Okay, so taxes per paycheck would be $492.82. Now let's go back, and we said we're only going to make $1,000 a paycheck, all right? And that was going to come out to a total tax rate, or total taxes of $33.73. Let's see if we got there. Bam, $33.73. Worked. It worked. Nice. I like it when it works. All right, so taxes per period, right there. All right, so now we can fill in the paycheck. All right, gross. All right, Social Security tax. All right, we didn't really define these. All right, so we can. Let's copy these. One of the calculations. I mean, this is going to be pretty simple. The Social Security tax rate is just going to be offset. Do I have these all named the same? All right, I don't. So what I'm going to do, copy these. All right, go to calculations, paste them in here so that they are exactly the same as what's in the table. All right, offset, tax table here, okay, lock it in. Right, the rows, I'm going to come down the 1 to get to Social Security tax rate, right? And I'm going to come over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 7. Come over 7 columns, return a cell of 1 by 1. It's going to give me let's come over 6 then. A35 down 1. Oh, I got to come down 2. So let's do A36 then. Over 7. There we go. All right. So now the way that we come over 7 is the tax year one again. So we're going to match tax year. Lock it in, comma 0. All right. And the way that we get down to the 1 is we're going to match, oh yeah, match this right there. No need to lock it, okay? And then come down this far, all right? Lock that to 0, 6.2. Now when I copy this down, they should all copy down. Now this is dollars, not a percentage. So now I have my rates. They don't change year to year, so I'm going to name them. Social Security rate. Medicare rate. PA rate. Local rate, unemployment rate, and LST tax. Okay. All right. So now I have them all named. Now I come to the paycheck. Remember, Social Security tax is simply defined Social Security income, taxable income, times Social Security tax rate. And round. Always want to round these. Medicare, round Social Security taxable income times Medicare rate, comma 2. All right, PA tax rate equals round Social Security taxable income times PA rate. Local tax is gross pay times local. Oh, no, it's just the unemployment that's gross pay. So Social Security taxable income times local rate. And PA unemployment equals gross pay times unemployment rate, and the last one is round gross pay, LST tax divided by 12, 2. Bam. And then deductible insurances. Total deductible insurance and total non-deductible insurance, 401k retirement contribution dollars, and a match. Gross pay times 0.03. All right, and then net pay equals sum of this, comma, equals gross pay minus sum of all of these. 628.35. And that should be what your paycheck looks like. Annualized times paycheck frequency. Just copy that formula all the way down. All right, and so that's how much you would pay in federal tax for the year. Remember, we had $1,754. There's 4 cents in there. So you might have 4 pennies. Your paychecks might be off 4 different times a year, where it might be $33.74. Anyway, so that's how you calculate your federal tax withholding and create a paycheck simulator using Excel. Now I want to show real quick how to do a goal seek. Let's just say you really want to save $19,500 in your 401k contribution. That's a really hefty goal right there. It's going to be quite difficult making $1,000 a week to do, but let's see, what percentage rate would you have to contribute at to be able to hit $19,500? That is simply done using the goal seek in the data what if analysis goal seek. You want to set this cell right here, D15, to be equal to 19,500. You have to type the number in. And you want to do that by changing this cell right there. Okay? So let's see what it has to come out. You click OK, and it will run. And you have to save 37.5%. You have to save 37.5% of your pay to hit $19,500, which is equal to a net pay of $344. In each paycheck, you'll be putting in $375. That will lower your taxes, though, to $2 per paycheck. So that's kind of cool. But you don't have much money coming in. All right, so let's just say you don't want to do 37.5% of your pay, but you do want to know what are the differences for your 401k contributions. Here you can do a what if analysis. So I put in on this side, coming down here, these rows, the percentage 401k contribution from 0 to 20%. I actually should take that down to 37.5%. I'll go to 38, okay? And then this is how much your total annual contribution is. And this is how much federal taxes you pay for the entire year. All right, right now it's set up at 37.5%. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to highlight this entire table. All right, I'll do it first and then explain it after. Highlight this entire table that you've set up. Go into what if analysis, data, what if analysis, data table. And then in the column input cell, you want to tell it what cell to put these numbers in, okay? And that's going to go into your user input retirement contribution rate. All right, I get it. Just for the sake of it, I'm going to change this to be equal to this. It's going to give me an error, circular, blah, blah, blah. But that's, I'm going to make that a 6. All right. So I'm going to put the cell on the page that we're actually doing the what if analysis. So I changed the user input to reflect the cell on Paycheck F3. So Paycheck F3 temporarily is going to be where we change the number. I could make it a 10, and you'll see it changes everything. All right, but I'm going to put it back at a 6. Okay. So at 6% contribution rate, you're putting $3,120 into your 401k, and you have a total pay federal taxes of $1,754. Now, if we highlight this entire table again, okay, and go to data, what if analysis, and data table, and in the column input cell, I put in this cell right here, and hit OK, it'll fill out this cell, these cells right here. And what this is going to tell me is, I'm going to change them to dollars and get rid of the pennies, that if my contribution rate is 6%, then I'm going to pay $3,120, and I'm going to pay $1,754 in taxes. All right. If I were to change that, if I would do nothing and put nothing in my 401k, I'm going to pay $2,081 in taxes. If I wanted to do 10%, I would be saving $5,200 a year, but I would only be paying $1,546. So this can help you. Creating a what if scenario here can help you determine how much you want to put in as your retirement contribution rate. Okay, man, that's pretty cool. You don't pay much taxes if you were to max out your Roth for your I'm sorry, not your Roth, your 401k contribution. So hopefully these two tools right here will help you in determining, just playing with the numbers. And you don't have to do 401k contribution. You could say, I don't know, what if the Pennsylvania tax rate changed, or whatever it is. Just remember, when you're doing the what if analysis, it has to be on the same tab as the number that's changing, as the tables. So you might have to do what I did there. Anyway, I hope that's not a big issue. So, all right. Well, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you learned some things. And let's go back to what the goal was here. So teach or demonstrate how to use round, VLOOKUP, index match, and offset, which I love offset, and using some of the formulas here. Creating a variable in name manager that has no basis anywhere in the workbook. That was kind of cool. The data validation lists using GoalSeek, and also data table. So again, I hope this was helpful. And to answer Shelley's original question, yes, you can use Excel to calculate your federal tax withholdings. Alright, so thank you again for tuning into my video, but this is a segment of my videos where if I made any, I like to point out any mistakes that I made. Now, as I went through the video, I did make some mistakes in real time, and I was able to correct the majority of them in real time. And that's because I don't do this in advance. I created this model in real time. I did create the setup with the tabs and some of the reference information in advance, but I did the model in real time. So I did make some other mistakes, and I'd like to point out what those mistakes are. And first, let me point out that when I calculated the local services tax, I divided by 12, and I should have divided by paycheck frequency. And it comes out to $1. And some of you may have caught that as we were going along. It did change the overall net pay by a little, but it didn't adjust the federal tax, which was the main goal of the project here. Okay. Additionally, the whole way I did this withholding table was I could have done it more efficiently. Instead of naming the withholding table as a variable in name manager this way, the problem with doing it the way that I did it is that the withholding table only accounts for 2 columns, when in actuality I wanted the withholding table to be all of this. All right, so what I should have done was just written the offset function here, and I already fixed it, and then I should have named this entire thing withholding table, and that would have allowed me to use these calculations. Instead of using index, I could have used a VLOOKUP table instead. So that just would have made it a little bit more efficient. That's probably the way I should have done it. Additionally, I did make a mistake in the calculation here. Okay, when you're calculating the taxes at the lower rates, you're supposed to add, and it didn't have an effect on this specific problem because they're in the first tax bracket, but if they were in a lower or higher tax bracket, this 7338 is not accurate because you also have to add in the 1990. It's all the taxes at the lower rates, not just the taxes calculated at that specific rate. So that does change things quite a bit if you are a significantly higher income earner. Okay, but in this example, it did not. But to be more accurate, that should have been fixed. The biggest mistake I probably made in here is I went through the trouble of creating a user input for deductible retirement, but I never used it, right? So if my user chose no, it did not change the overall 3373, what it should have. And so I should have written in an if-then statement when calculating the taxable income right here to check to see if the retirement contribution was tax deductible or not. So let's do that. Cut that word out. If retirement deduction status, right there, equals yes, then put in the retirement dollars, else 0, close parenthesis. And now I have 880, right, which is exactly what we wanted. If it was yes, boom. And then also in the Social Security one, it's the opposite, right? So if retirement tax status or retirement deduction status equals yes, then you want to add it back in, else 0. Okay, so it's 880, as it should be. Now, if they're no, then the calculations are the same, 880. Okay, so again, back to yes, it should be 820 and 880. Social Security income really doesn't change either way. Okay, but if it's no, then again they're equal, 880 and 880, and then the paycheck changes from 3733 to 4002. So as you can see, if you're making a non-deductible retirement contribution, your taxes are higher, but because you're not getting that tax deduction for your retirement contribution. So other than that, I didn't find any other errors. If you found errors, please let me know in the comments and I will fix them. But again, hopefully you learned some things about Excel through watching this video, or if you already knew them, maybe you learned a couple things about taxes. So anyway, again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much. Comments and put questions in the comments, and I appreciate it. Thank you.